Hey, it's Don here. Guess what? I've been on a scavenger hunt. Yes, I know. Normally, scavenger hunts don't have much to do with building Jeeps, but that's what I've been doing. So come on along, I'll tell you all about it. All right, well, you're probably wondering what the heck I mean by the fact that I've been on a scavenger hunt, but I really have. I've been all over this valley. And what am I looking for? Well, I'm looking for seals. Oh no, not those kinds of seals. These kind of seals that come in little boxes and you can get from places like Napa Auto Parts. So here's the deal. I have been missing, I figured out that as I got ready to put in the other axle shaft up front, all three of the pieces that went between the axle shaft and the spindle are missing. I'm going to go back and watch videos, but I think they've been missing the whole time. I don't think they were there when I took them apart, so I don't think I lost them. I have been to every auto parts store in town trying to find the seal that goes behind my wheel bearings and the seals that go on the axle shafts. I've had some success, and some of the parts the guys just can't figure out what I need. I did find on Quadratec's website a part number that has all of the, like a whole rebuild kit. There's a spindle and the bearing for the spindle and all three of the seals that go between that and the axle shaft, but you have to buy them all as a unit. And I don't need new spindles. I have decent spindles, so that might be what I wind up doing. But hopefully not. So I just got a severe weather alert on my phone out of the blue here. It looks like there's a great big thunderstorm bombing my way across the Great Salt Lake and headed my way. So I painted my hubs. Well, I painted half of them. They've been sitting outside for a day and a half now in the hot sun. Hopefully they'll be dry with that nasty paint that I hate so much. But I'm gonna go get those and probably maybe slap a coat of paint on them on the other side, and I've got them sitting on a piece of cardboard so I can slide them back inside of the garage and get the door closed up before that storm gets here. And then I will sit you down and we'll run through these part numbers in detail so I can tell you what part numbers I found so that we can get to the bottom of this. So if you have the same issues and you're looking for parts at some point, I think if you go into a store with the actual part number, you know, you'll have better luck finding them than if you're trying to describe to the guys what you need and have them look them up. Because it does seem like when you can explain to them what you need and they can look it up on their computer, they know what you're talking about, or they can at least go find the parts, but they don't know any more about this stuff than I do, it seems. So you got to kind of guide them through the thing. So I think if I can give you the part numbers I found, I might be able to save you a little trouble somewhere down the road. So let's get on with that part and I'll be right back. Okay, so here's what we've got. We've got our axle shaft. This is the part, the longer end. This is the passenger side. So this is the side closest to, this is going into the pumpkin. This is going to carry my wheel bearing and my spindle out here, okay? So we got this flange on there, and the first seal that we have is supposed to fit right around that flange, and it kind of looks like it has just it's a dust seal. It's not lubricated, it's just dry, it's a dust seal. I don't have that. I have the little spacer, which goes on next, that has the chamfered inside edge there. That goes on with the chamfer towards the shaft flange so that it can fit over the round where it's machined. And then I did find part number 711818. That's a Napa part number, I think. CR Seals is what it is. So those guys are the small little seal that's about an inch and a half. And where this thing really lives is, this is the back of my spindle, okay? So the dust cover seal goes against here. I'm missing that one. The spacer is going to bump up right against here, and this seal is ultimately going to live inside of there just like that. I don't know if you can see it, but I put it in there. So this is the oil seal on the grease that we're going to put in our bearing in there. So I have that new, and again, that's part number 711818. It's a CR seal. Now, I thought that they gave me the proper seal to go on my bearings on the spindle. They did not. So they gave me a part number 21159, and let's see if that's stamped on the back of this thing. Yep, 21159. I just cleaned up the existing seals that I have because I'm afraid that I might need to use those again. And so I've got one of them. I got one in my hand here, and when I cleaned off the back of it, I came up with a CR number of 23300. So I may run down to the boys at Napa one more time and see if they can pull up a CR 2330, 23300, 23,300, whatever. So there's, but if not, I've cleaned these up and looked at them closely, and I think they'll be okay. So I think I can salvage these if I have to, but for now I'm gonna set one down over here. And then I have my bearings. So inside and outside bearings that are going to go on the spindle to carry that wheel hub. So the part numbers for those are PBR35 and PBR50. Now, without kind of getting out there and putting them in, I can't tell you which one's which, but I believe the bigger one is on the inside. That's the 50 part number. So again, PBR50. And then the smaller one goes on the inside. It's going to be the PBR35. So those are going to wind up, they're going to ride on this spindle. I think one rides on this face right here, and the other one probably rides here or here. I think here, I don't recall. But the spindle, if we're looking at this, goes over our shaft just like that. So that's how that fits together. And that seal that I'm missing, the dust seal, would fill up this space right here and keep dust from getting in there. And if it's probably not going to be the end of the world if I put that together without that one seal. I have everything else, just don't have that one. So I think I do have enough stuff to get this put together, but I might just maybe make a couple of phone calls and see if somebody can hunt me up those bearing seals, because if possible, I'd really prefer to put new ones in than use these old ones, and maybe they can give me my money back on these, because it seemed like these guys were pretty expensive. I remember the sales guy at the counter the other day was like, "Whoa, those are expensive. They're like $19 a piece or something like that." So obviously, if I can't use them, I like to take them back and get my money back on them. So although we got oil on the box, I might not take them back. But anyway, I'll verify as I put this back together that my wheel bearing parts are the right wheel bearings. But other than that, I got all my part numbers there for you. So I think there's nothing more to do but do a little building. Okay, well, I took off really quick and I ran down to Napa after calling them to make sure that they had these seals. Once I gave them this CR number, they had them. They had a couple, and they let me give back the ones that were the wrong size. So the proper number is 23300, and that is again the wheel cylinder or the wheel hub seal that's going to go on the inside behind, or basically on the end of the wheel bearings. So as we're putting everything together, this piece will be inside of the wheel hub, and it will go in here and it will fit around this large portion, and you can see it fits on there just fine. So winner, winner, chicken dinner. There's my right seal number. 23300 is the inner seal in the wheel hub that closes in the bearings on the inside of the spindle. So there we go. I got everything I need to get us back together. I just need to eat some dinner, and then whether I get to this tonight or maybe tomorrow is yet to be seen. We'll see how it goes. Kind of nursemaid and the dog, she's not doing so well, so got to go deal with her a little bit, and I will be back to check in on you in a little bit and see if you've got any work done while I was gone. All right, well, I don't know if you recall or not, but when I was knocking the steering knuckles off, I dinged this one bolt a little bit here, this stud, I guess you'd call it. And so I flat spotted a little bit of the threads right here. So I just put some paint on there so you can't see it. No, what I said I was gonna do was find my tap and die set and just run a tap down the thing, or a die, I guess it's a die. So I've taken the handles off. I found this one, it's a 3/8 24 thread, I think. So what I'm doing is I'm just doing it by hand, and I've taken the handles off so I can spin the thing around without having to take all these other studs off. And I'm just running this down to see if I can just clean that spot up a little bit. So obviously there's the place where I hit them, and I think I'll be able to get it cleaned up enough that the nut will go back on there without too much trouble. So just gonna do that, make it pass a little bit further. I might have to put the one handle back in and go part of the way in and take it out and put the other one in, just to cut a little thread through there. But that's my alternative to pulling all these studs out, or pulling one out and putting a new one in, because as much trouble as I've been having finding everything else, I'm sure that's going to be a trick to find if I have to try to find a set of studs for these knuckles. So I won't make you watch me go all the way to the bottom of this thing, but I'm just going to continue this process on, just clean these threads up a little bit, and then I'll be ready to put my spindle back on there. All right, well, if you're looking for a fun-filled way to spend a Saturday morning, trust me, packing wheel bearings is it. So there's just no good way to do this. Basically what you got to do is get this goopy, sticky stuff here and work it into this bearing so that it's fully packed in there from all directions. Now, what they taught me when I was a kid about 1,000 years ago was that you were supposed to get a big glob of this stuff in the palm of your hand, thus, and smash that bearing into that so that you're pushing it all the way through in every direction here. So I'm sure, I would imagine by this point in our evolved state as human beings, we've probably invented some grease packing tool that does this properly and completely, but I don't think that we're going to worry about that. We're just using the old palm method. And while it's dirty and messy, it seems to work pretty well. So, you know, don't be shy, just grease the heck out of that thing, because you're going to put this back in that hub and you're not going to see it ever again, hopefully, or not for a long time. So don't be shy, and once you get it in there, then we're going to slap a little more grease in around it. Make sure we're all good. And then we're going to put our seal in place to seal that guy in place and keep the bad dust stuff and water and so forth out of our nice bearing. So there you go. Like I said, if you're looking for a fun way to spend a Saturday, right here is your guide, man. Just get some grease, get it all over yourself, and just have a great time. But keep some paper towels handy, because you're gonna need them. Then what I'm going to try to do is make sure that it's nice and straight, that one side's not going in before the other, and just going to gently tap that in with the mallet. Seated well. Okay, so there's our bearing in our hub, ready to go back on. We got one more piece now. That's our new brake disc, which is going to go on there like that. And then we're going to press our wheel studs back through there. And I have one here. So with the wheel stud, let's see if we can show you this enough so we can see it. Man, I can't hang on to stuff. Okay, so this is our wheel stud, and you can see there we've got a section of it that is smooth. We've got a section of it that's kind of knurled, or whatever you call that. That's what's going to grip into the hub once I get it down all the way through. So when you start to press it in, you can you turn it a little bit and you can feel it kind of sequence into those grooves down in the hub itself. Okay, so now we're just gonna drive those down flush into there, and let's see if I can show you what we're gonna look like without it all coming apart, you can see now I'm gonna have my wheel studs here, and I'm gonna put my second bearing in this end, the smaller one. And once I press these studs in all the way, they will be locking my disc to the back of my hub. So simple, pretty simple stuff, right? This Jeep stuff, it's all simple. It all just sometimes takes a hammer. So I'm gonna shut you off for a minute because you don't want to hear me pounding on these things. I'm just gonna take, I think I showed you when I was working on trying to get the ball joints out. I have a beat up old 1/2" drive socket extender that I use as my driving tool. I'm just gonna pound those down tight, and then we'll be ready to put this on the spindle, put the outer bearing in, and put our lock bolts in, our lock nuts in to draw that in and tighten it up, and then we'll have a wheel back on. Now again, I do not have my calipers. I've been trying to follow up with the guys from Quadratech. They say they shipped directly from the vendor, and I think the same vendor who shipped me these. So I got these, but I didn't get the calipers, so I'm waiting on those, but I can at least get this back on and get a tire mounted up on that front corner and then go do the other corner. So there we go, we're moving right along here. Okay, so on more than one occasion you've heard me complain that I have too many tools, but there are times when it is appropriate to have the right tool for the job. So these are the nuts that go thread onto the end of the spindle that tension up those outer bearings, okay? And the way that you're supposed to work on these is you're supposed to have one of these spindle bearing nut sockets, which is again about a $7 tool. When guys don't have the right tool, the way that they tighten these and loosen them up is they jam a chisel in there and they pound on the edges of the socket with a chisel. So you can see, well maybe you can't see, but I can see big hack marks in these sockets where, or in this nut where this was tightening it, then here's, looks like somebody was untightening it again with the chisel digging into the side of the nut. So, well, I complain sometimes that I bought too many tools. There's times when you just need to have the right tool for the job. If you don't, you just make a mess out of things. So I'm gonna reuse this, but I am gonna chalk it up in the vise and take a file and clean up these edges a little bit so that it's not all nasty, and let that just be a lesson when you're doing your front bearings. And again, you know, this is what you need to properly, what you're gonna do is you're gonna tighten this first nut down on that bearing and tighten it up until the wheel just kind of won't turn, and then you back it off a little bit. I'm sure, I'm gonna look in my book, I'm sure there's a proper exact way that I'm not describing all that well to do that. But if you've got the right tool, this socket, you know, it's great. It's got a 1/2" drive in it. Again, it's about a 7" socket, or a $7 socket. I think it's 2 1/8", I believe is the size. But if you don't have that, then you wind up with this shade tree mechanic kind of stuff like this, where your nuts all got these big gouges in it where you've been using a chisel to get it tight. So I don't need to, I mean, it's not going to bother the threads, and if I clean that up, I'll be able to get my socket on there, but it would make it pretty difficult to use this socket with this thing all scarred up the way it is. So I am going to throw it in the vise here, take a file those down, get rid of them a little bit, and just clean this edges up a smidge before I put that back together so it looks decent and it's not hacking my fingers all up while I'm tightening it up in there finger tight. Okay, so just in case you can't remember the order in which we took this apart, I'm going to show you how we're going to put this back together. So we've got the hub, which is going to go in with our seal end first. Okay, so that's going to leave this end open up out here. What we're going to do is we're then going to put in a bearing, which is basically going to ride right against that part of the spindle. And then on that bearing, there's a keyed slot in this spindle here. So this washer is going to go on first. Then this nut has kind of a raised surface on each edge of it, and I'm going to put that on first. So that's going to basically go on here, thread down in there, Then we put this magical little keeper device on here that I just hate these things. But this is basically, so the first thing I'm going to do once I get my hub on there is I'm going to tighten this down and get my tension properly on my bearings, because what's going to happen is this bolt here is pressing my bearings together against each other inside of that hub, which is, putting the pressure on them. So this has to be tightened down. This is my locking mechanism for when I get my second lock nut on there. So what you do is you tighten down your second lock nut just to lock everything in place. Okay, and then this is the part where it gets just kind of cheesy, in my opinion, is you got to kind of get inside of that hub and you bend this tab, you bend one piece of this tab back over, or you can do a couple of pieces to just keep this nut from working loose. So that's all there is to it. You can kind of see how everything goes together without it on there. So first order of business is we got to get a bunch of grease, and this guy will slide the hub up on there, press this in, and start this process for real. So I'm gonna let you watch me do it, but I'll stop talking and just do the work, and that way I can listen to a little music while I work without violating the YouTube copyright laws. So stay with me. You can watch over my shoulder here and see how we do. All right, well, there she is, standing up on all 4 tires for the first time in a long time. I did paint those shocks, and I slipped the boots back on and put those on there. I know I got a black zip tie, and it should be a red one, but whatever. Front end's pretty much put back together. Now I'm missing still my brake calipers, and I'm missing my tie rod and my drag link to get the steering hooked in, but other than that, front end's pretty much buttoned up. So you know what's next. That big empty spot right there where the engine goes, that's about the next thing that's going to have to start getting some attention. I'm going to spin you around on the side and show you the hubs. I didn't put any of the insides back in the hubs. I have ordered replacement hubs because the insides were pretty much beat up. But that's about it. Everything's buttoned up as can be for now. So I'm going to leave it here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time around.